Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on BoM structure and reporting. This webinar is going to show how PTC Windchill stores, manages, and controls data product information. My name is Alex Janicki, Director of Marketing here at TriStar, and I'm pleased to introduce our presenter, Cody Wiltrout, Virtual Presales Specialist at PTC. Before we get started, I just wanted to do some quick bookkeeping and mention that a complimentary recording of this webinar will be sent to everyone who registered automatically, as well as available on our website, tristar.com, and our YouTube channel shortly after the presentation. If you have any questions during the presentation, please feel free to leave them in chat, and we'll hold a brief Q&A at the end of the presentation. But before I pass it over, I did want to briefly go over TriStar for any of you not familiar with us. At TriStar, we're a company that specializes in helping manufacturing companies adopt systems and processes to enable better and more efficient product development. We achieve this by being the largest value-added reseller for PTC products and services worldwide, with headquarters in Phoenix, Arizona, and representatives and engineers throughout North America, Canada, and Mexico. We've been in business for over 25 years, and we're experts in CAD, data management, PLM, and product development. We also have a large assortment of custom solutions, services, and support packages for Windchill tailored to specific requirements and needs. And with that, I'm not going to waste any time. I'm going to go ahead and pass the reins over to Cody here.
All right, thank you very much. Go ahead and find the right screen here. All right, my PowerPoint should be coming through shortly for everyone here. So nice to meet all of you and be on the line with you all today. As mentioned, my name is Cody Wiltrout, and I'm a solutions consultant here with PTC. I've been with PTC for coming on 5 years now, focusing mainly on our PLM segment, so Windchill. I was brought on to discuss how Windchill can help with BoM structuring, management, and reporting today. So starting off with some of the real importance and implications around bill of materials. Innovation is something that every company wants to do. They're trying to get into having connected products, trying to be industry leaders, and that means you end up with more products, you have more complex parts, a wider list of them, and you have a greater need for product and system connectivity to be able to understand the relationships between everything and better cross-functional collaboration between your teams. On the other side, if you have a disconnected product definition, it can cause delays, cost overruns if you're not having visibility into which types of components you should be using, who you're supposed to be sourcing from, things like that. Scrap or rework if you don't have all the same teams, or all the different teams, I should say, working in the same place, making sure that they're seeing the correct versions of data. And then you can end up with poor quality because at the end of the day, if you have a bunch of users not all talking the same language, not all in the same place, you're going to have differences between your data, and that can lead to that scrap, that rework, lower quality products in general, and it's going to cost you more time and money to manage all of that. So the solution we have to that is Windchill's BoM structure and reporting. And what this is going to give you is a complete multi-dimensional bill of materials. So traditionally, a bill of materials might just be based off of your CAD structure, and that is certainly a great place to start, and where we start with from Windchill, uploading one of those CAD structures and utilizing that to start to build out our full bill of materials. But as you can see in the image on the right-hand side there, we have a lot of other information that we can show inside of the bill of materials, like, for example, some drawings, some plant distribution information, documentation, PCB board information, math CAD analysis. So anything that really describes your product, we want to be able to show how it comes together and relates, and have one view into the overall product, not have it all be disconnected and separated. And so that's where we really get into the idea of a bill of information and kind of completing that digital thread, where you show the relations between all of the data that you have. You don't just have CAD data that describes this product, you have all of this other digital information that also describes it, and we're going to be able to tie that all together to give you that holistic view. This also has multi-CAD data management, so we can deal with other types of CAD. Even though Creo is our tool, we can work with SolidWorks, CATIA, and Excel, the major players, and we can pull that CAD data directly in. So we try to be as open as possible in terms of being able to work with those other tools, not just Creo. And this is going to give you full data traceability. As you make changes to the bill of materials, you'll be able to see from the history what changes it is that you've actually made, create baselines, things of that nature, and have an understanding of where you started and where you finished and every step you took kind of to get from point A to point B in that process. We can also connect up with ERP and MRP systems. We have some out-of-the-box connectors for some of the more common systems, and we have an open API that you can always use to create connections to the tools as well as the ability to export these out in some common formats if you just wanted to upload them into the other tools as well. So you have some options there in terms of how you want to connect with your other systems, and again, make sure that's one kind of smooth workflow between all the different data. So with that in mind, I'm going to go ahead and jump into Windchill so we can see what that structure looks like inside of here. Starting off with some basics, I've signed into the home screen. I'm signed in as an administrator today. I don't think I'll really be using any administrative actions, but I'll highlight if I do. And this is going to be a web-based UI for those of you who are new to Windchill, so you don't have to install anything to access Windchill. You just log in with your username and password and to whatever web browser you choose. It'll bring you here into your home page. Now, if I'm interested in the structure, I can come to my Browse tab and start digging into my different contexts. Contexts are the highest structural level of information and organization inside of the system. You're going to be looking mostly at products for your structure. So your products is any data that's specific to one product. We have a car that we're going to be working with today, a bus, a laptop, a skid steer. Anything that's specific to the skid steer would go under it, anything about the laptop under it, etc. We also have libraries, which are for more general information. If you have things like standard operating procedures, common parts like nuts and bolts that aren't going to be tied to one product, you can put that there. But for today's use case and example, we're going to go ahead and look at our car. Now, if I'm interested in that BoM structure, I can simply come to the Structure tab under the context I'm interested in, and it will bring me into this Structure tab here. So here we can see the overall breakdown of that car, starting from the top level down to the engine, the car body, some of the wheel assemblies, the chassis, everything like that. We can see how that's all broken down here. And again, that might be coming directly from my CAD. That's, the base structure is based off of that CAD. Now, if I'm interested in one of these sub-assemblies, say maybe this front wheel assembly, since it's going through a change process, I can simply right-click on it and say View Information, and it will take me a layer deeper to that specific subassembly. Now in the Structure tab, there's a lot of capability. The first thing I'll note is that we can do visualization for these objects inside of here, and this is not specific to just Creo. This again can work with the other CAD tools as well. Whenever you check these into Windchill, it will say, do you want to create these visualizations, or you can have it set up to automatically create them, and it will create these lightweight visualizations that you can then interact with and identify what's going on. You can turn on and off individual components if you want to highlight them. There's also cross-highlighting capabilities here. So if I'm interested in some component, say this spring, I can select it here visually, and it'll find it for me inside of the structure. And the same is true in reverse, where if I select something here in the structure, it's going to highlight for me here inside of my visualization. Now, on the left-hand side here in the structure breakdown, you can see these gray gears, and you can see that we only have the gray gears, unlike that image that I showed in the PowerPoint earlier. So this gray gear, for those of you unfamiliar, is what's known as a WT part. Now, the way I like to think of the WT part is that it's like a container, maybe like an envelope for collecting information. Whenever I check this assembly into Windchill, I can say, I want to tie this to a WT part. It's like putting it in the bucket, putting it in that container. But now I have other information that describes that same thing. So for example, maybe with my brake disc, I have other information about it. I have some analysis about how much heat it generates or how over what distance it can brake. I have documentation, I have drawings, whatever it is, plant distribution information, all those things that we saw earlier. You can start tying those to the same WT part. It's like putting them in the same bucket, and that's what creates the relationship between all this different information and truly creates that bill of information that I mentioned earlier. So to show that, I'm going to go ahead and expand this full bill out all the way. And then I'm going to select everything inside of the bill of materials here and say that I want to show all the information. I can choose to show specific things. In our case, I'm just going to say bring everything that we have in here. And we can start to see different types of information from CAD and plant distribution targets to documentation, PCB boards, assemblies, drawings, MathCAD analysis, multiple plant distribution targets, even multi-CAD between the SolidWorks and Creo assembly here. So you can see that you can really tie together a lot of information in one place and show how that's all really describing your product. So this gets beyond just that basic setup of a CAD structure. We have a bill of materials from our CAD structure. We now have a bill of materials that shows everything that describes our actual product that we have, tied it all together, got it in one place, have visibility for all the different users. And then, this is a little outside of strictly speaking BoM structure and reporting, but as you move into other use cases inside of Windchill, as you utilize those workflows, the relationships between the objects here that we've created are going to continue to move forward. And that's going to really help with that workflow use and generation as you start to make changes, seeing how everything is tied together and making sure everything gets moved through one of those changes together uniformly. It's going to give you all that kind of capability. Now the WT part also has other capabilities here inside of the system. One thing, for example, is that we could say I want to add a new component in here, but maybe it's something that we're not going to have CAD for. I'm going to generate a label. Well, I can create a WT part that's just essentially a placeholder to say, hey, I need a label that's going to have a barcode, a compliance icon, and a company logo. Those aren't things that I'm going to design in Creo or SolidWorks or any other CAD tool, but I still want to make sure that we're keeping track of them for when it comes time to push this down to manufacturing. And for that reason, I can use these WT parts as placeholders to say, hey, this is still here and needs to be kept track of. So the WT part is also going to give you more flexibility in being able to edit your structure and control the organization of it. As you go downstream into some of the manufacturing or service designs, you can even reorganize the structure as you need to make it fit best for whoever's going to be consuming it and what they would want to be seeing there. And with that in mind, we'll go into some of the tools across the top here that we have. The first thing that I'll note is since I added that label in here, this did get checked out to me. So I made a change to it, and because of that, it is checked out currently to me. If I checked it back in, this would iterate from 8.18 to 8.19 there. We also have a few other things here to show. Besides just being able to show related data under the WT parts, we also have different views that we can have set up. And this can control what we're showing here. So from quantity and state, maybe if I had some vendor information or costing information, I can put that in here in columns. And those different views can again be utilized based around what your role is and what information being displayed is going to be most useful for you. But you can set up different views with different columns there so that it's going to be easy for you to get what you need out of that. You can also do filters, as I kind of mentioned, from different design views, whether you want a design versus manufacturing versus a service view. And that can even get into manufacturing parts management, which allows you to really manage two concurrent bill of materials that are related but separate, so that you can have a manufacturing bill entirely separately from your design bill, but still create a relation between them. Alternatively, you can start with just creating filters where you would show different views based on maybe the state, the in-work state would be designed versus if it was released, it would be a manufacturing view. So there's different options there in terms of what depth you want to get into with that. We can also generate reports. So if I wanted to generate a single or a multi-level BoM report, I can choose to do that here and with what information I want. So if I need to share this data out with someone, I can quickly generate up one of these reports and share any of this information here. Similarly, I can also export this out as a CSV or an Excel template. So if I needed to put this out so that it could be uploaded into one of those other systems, I can easily generate up one of those files from here and send it off to the other system. And again, depending on what type of system it is, we may already have an automatic connector for those where you wouldn't even have to do any exporting. It can automatically sync and push that data back and forth there to make sure that you're seeing everything that you need to. Now, a few other things that I'll touch before the end of the day for our session here. Number one, we can also utilize this capability of being able to see how everything's related to look at a lot of data at the same time. So if I said I was interested in looking at this brake caliper here, maybe I want to look at the drawing and the part, I can select it and say copy here. So it's going to copy it to my clipboard. And from the quick links then, I can access that clipboard and say I want to open up both of these objects in Creo View at the same time. So I'm going to launch Creo View here. And now for those of you unfamiliar with Creo View, that it is a tool for being able to view those visualizations of CAD data. It can look at documents, drawings, even some PCB information. So we could pull up this here and see this part that we have, but we also have the drawing as well. So I could set up a 2 split view if I wanted to, and then pull in that drawing here side by side and see that side by side view of the two. I can always do markups inside of here as well and measurements. So if I wanted, for example, the diameter of this cut, I can select on the part and then choose this diameter there. That's going to be accurate to my CAD data without having to go to an engineer to do some type of markup like that. And of course, you could always leave notes as well. If you had something like, say, you're going to be having some change done, you could make a note and detail specifically, say it has to do with this cut, and say, hey, there's some issue, we need to adjust the diameter of this cut or whatever it would be. But you could save notes like that and put them back into Windchill as well. But you could split this view into as many views as you want. Again, if you wanted to pull up maybe some Word documentation that's describing this, as well as any other type of data, you can have split views and be able to look at that and really dig through all of your information at once. And then, of course, you can always focus on one of these or the other and break down your views until you're done and focused with everything. And now being able to go beyond just being able to open these up and utilize and view that information, I do want to touch on the fact that we can, again, keep track of that history as well. So if we come to this compare tool here, it allows us to compare different versions of our part structure. So I'm going to say that on the left-hand side, we want to look at a baseline configuration that we have set, so this 8.8 version, and I want to compare that to my current working version, and it'll generate up to side-by-side structures here, highlighting in blue what is different. So the right-hand column here shows that there's an attribute difference between these two components, so something changed about it. The left-hand column shows that there's a child difference, so something under this component has changed. And then the center column shows that there is no equivalent object. I just added that label in now to the design, so it does not exist in that earlier baseline configuration. But this is a nice visual way to be able to quickly identify what's actually changed from one version to the next and be able to keep track of all of that and understand what's going on with your product. And of course, you always have the full history as well that you can look at for any of these individual objects and dig in on what exactly has changed from one use to another. You can also do searching inside of the structure. So if you're inside of a structure and you need to find something, you can always do a quick search and identify any components that match whatever it is inside of here, so you can quickly find whatever it would be that you're looking for inside of the structure. And you can always get more advanced. So I'm showing, some of the basic capabilities of being able to utilize the WT part and how that's going to give you a lot of structure capability and management capability around your bill of materials. But this can get much more advanced. As I mentioned already, you can use npm link to be able to do manufacturing process management and build out that concurrent bill of materials for manufacturing as well as design. You can also get into overloaded bill of materials where you might be doing alternatives and substitutions based around configuration management. So we can always handle configuration management and set up different configurations for bills of material as well. But that gets into a little bit more advanced capabilities there. But if there is any interest from any of that, from anyone in the call, always feel free to reach out. I'm sure we can follow on with some demonstrations specific to what might be of interest for all of you today. But with that in mind, that's really what I wanted to show from the Windchill side in terms of being able to utilize this structure tab, how you can have this full bill of materials with the relationships to the other data, being able to utilize that WT part, as well as discussing how some of the toolbar capabilities give you things like being able to do reporting, create filters and different views, as well as do comparisons between your different iterations of your bill of materials. So with that in mind, what I hope everyone was able to see today is that this really gives you a holistic digital product definition, not just, again, that CAD data, but being able to see everything that describes your product. This is also going to give you improved cross-discipline collaboration because you're going to allow different users to be able to be in the system and to see the same data. And that can go all the way from the beginning with design down to people in manufacturing to make sure they're all pulling from that consistent data set. And this gives you a single source to be able to come for that product data by being able to tie all the different data together utilizing that WT part, and eliminate some of those time spent doing rework, making redundant information and searching by having that all in one place, giving you easy search capabilities inside of there, and really, again, being able to reuse some of that data too. I know this isn't something we discussed today, but as you start getting into some of those things like common parts, nuts, bolts, things of that nature that you're going to be purchasing a lot, having it all in one system, being able to see where you can reuse parts and identify how you can get bulk value out of those types of parts as well is something that Windchill can help with by giving you clear visibility into where everything is being used and what parts you should be using. And you can even set things like approved or set to do not use for components so that your designers would know what they should be requesting or what they should be putting into new products to try to save there on costs. So that's really what I wanted to go over for today's session. Thank you all. And with that, I'll pass it off if there's any closing comments.
Very good. Thank you, Cody. And really, he kind of just touched the surface. There's a lot more to learn and discover. We definitely encourage you to visit tristar.com for more information on BoM management and more. If you enjoyed this presentation, we definitely encourage you to share the on-demand recording with colleagues or on social media. You're also going to find additional webinar replays on tristar.com as well. Thank you for your time today, Cody, and I hope everyone has a wonderful Friday and weekend. And stay warm, everyone.
Take it easy.
Take care. Thank you.